Hello, welcome to You've Seen It Before, TV Reviews, Connections of Mine, and welcome back to another installment in my review and reaction series to each and every episode of Season 4 of Star Trek Discovery. If you've never seen one of my review and reaction episodes before, this is where I give my brief overview of the most recent episode of whatever TV show I happened to be reviewing at the time, what I liked and disliked, what I thought worked and didn't work, as well as some analysis as to certain plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar to you and where you may have seen them before. Just to get this out of the way, this will be a full spoiler review and reaction to the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery, so if you've not seen this latest episode yet, I highly recommend coming back when you have, because this will be full-on spoilers from here on out. So with that being said, without further ado, let's get into Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 10, entitled The Galactic Barrier. So titled because the whole crux of this episode is, in order to reach the Species 10C, the party behind the DMA that is wreaking havoc in the Milky Way, Discovery must leave the galaxy and travel to the hyperfield where Species 10C is. However, they have to first traverse the Galactic Barrier. The Galactic Barrier is, as the name implies, the barrier surrounding the Milky Way that is very difficult to traverse without severe damage to the ship and the crew. We last saw the Galactic Barrier in Star Trek: The Original Series. Most a couple times that was directed. It was established that very few ships have been able to traverse the Galactic Barrier. The Enterprise, of course, being the main exception to that. Discovery knows that, while they're traversing this, Discovery is traversing this not only with the crew of Discovery, but with President Rillick of as well as a delegation of several Federation representatives and first contact specialists on board. So there's obvious tension between Burnham and Rillick as how the mission proceeds. Meanwhile, Tarka and Book are seeking programmable antimatter, which is established that this substance is necessary to bolster whatever ship's shields in order to safely traverse the Galactic Barrier. Book and Tarka know where they go to a planet where there is a stash of programmable antimatter, and happens to be the planet where Tarka was held as a Emerald Chain prisoner, and we finally get the backstory behind his the reason why he's taken all these actions to go rogue and destroy the DMA and find a power source. Turns out he had a friend who was also a scientist as a prisoner of the Emerald Chain, who I believe his name was Oros, and they had a plan to escape to another universe, a parallel universe. The plan didn't quite work according to plan, and Tarka ends up escaping. However, Oros is still confined by the Emerald Chain. However, circumstances seem to indicate that he managed to escape into the alternate universe, and Tarka has been going back ever since, trying to figure out how he did it, if he did it, and if he needs to get the interdimensional transporter working. And that's why he needed the power source. We finally find that out. They get the programmable matter. Meanwhile, on Discovery, the main sources, yes, they're struggling to get through the Galactic Barrier. However, right before Discovery entered the Galactic Barrier, President Rillick received a transmission from Admiral Vance saying that the DMA had sped up and now has moved to a position where the DMA will impact with both Navarre and Earth within a matter of days, and so that's basically upping the tension of upping the stakes. there's a discussion of whether or not to reveal this information to the crew. Burnham wants to reveal it immediately. Rillick says, no, we have to wait. Revealing this right now will only make things worse while we're still traversing the barrier. They finally, Discovery finally manages to breach the barrier. They are now outside the Milky Way. Rillick reveals this information to the crew, about the up stakes, and the episode ends with Discovery warping towards the hyper barrier, and we have we're facing the great beyond at this point of the great unknown of species 10C and the hyper barrier. What I liked about this episode is, again, we haven't seen the Galactic Barrier since the TOS days, so the new updated look is pretty awesome, and I liked that much. This was a good exercise in ratcheting up the stakes, very technical problem, as well as, stealing nerves, beating the clock, trying to figure things out in order to get this far. I also really liked Tarka, this exploration into Tarka's background. It was interesting as far as that character died. We'd finally get that background, and it reveals that both Tarka and Book are acting out of while Tarka may be acting out of somewhat selfish reasons, wanting to reunite with his friend that he feels like he's failed him. We now know the reasons behind why both he and Book did what they did in going rogue, and now that the mystery is revealed, this is an instance where now we've revealed this mystery, it actually does pay off. I think this is a good payoff as to the mysterious motivations this whole time. It's like, oh, okay, there weren't any weird Easter eggs this whole time to other Trek franchises. Though fairly straightforward storyline, and I think it worked out well. I think this is good character development, as well as great character development between Burnham and Rillick. I think they, their words together were very effective, very powerful, and really the only thing that I think didn't work out in this episode, I think I alluded to it last week. The nascent relationship between Saru and the president of Navarre. I didn't think it really worked out that well last week, and this week it just barely gets a little bit more breathing room, and it really only pays off as Saru pays his sympathy to her for the news that Navarre is in the line of fire of the DMA, and that's really all there is to this episode. I don't think that was really a huge addition to anything in this proceedings, so like I said, I don't think that was a huge benefit, but overall I would say, the main focuses of this episode, the main challenge of getting through the Galactic Barrier and, exploring Tarka's backstory, those were done very well. I think on balance this was a very good episode, and just to get this out of the way, and I feel a need to address this. I feel like the timing of this episode, you can never predict what goes on in the world these days, but Burnham's words to President Rillick at the end, where it's like, people feel the need to that their leaders have a plan to go through this, and I think I needed to hear your words as well. That's why I didn't go this, because you were my president too, and they need to know that they're going to be okay. I feel like this episode was written in a time, obviously still in the pandemic times. I feel like that was the main context that this was written in a time of uncertainty and anxiety. But given the timing that this episode came out right as things are unfolding in Ukraine, even more uncertainty in that front, and people's homes are in direct threat. That just made it impact even more on that front. So, I feel like that impacted me a lot more on that front, and I have friends and acquaintances who are in Ukraine or being directly impacted by that. So I just felt the need to communicate. If anyone's watching this from Ukraine right now during all this, all I can say is my thoughts and prayers are with you for what they're worth, and you're not alone on that. So a little bit of reality inside of this discussion of fictional worlds, but really getting back to that fictional that fiction, this episode in particular, it made me think right off the bat to the discussion of communicating with species 10C, relating to them, introducing confirmation bias via the universal translator. Those are interesting concepts. I know they don't get brought up often enough in Star Trek, I think, and I think it was interesting that they brought up here. It made me think of all things, Sphere, both the movie adaptation and the original novel by Michael Crichton. That was all about relating to an alien life form and how we assume, how we communicate with all of these preconceptions of human interactions, and talking with an alien species that may not even have any of that. So those those concepts made me think of Sphere from that front, but also Tarka and Oros' story made me think of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I believe the episode was Hard Time, when that was really a deep dive into Miles O'Brien, and he goes through a very compressed, it never happened, but it really happened for him, prison experience with him and his cellmates going together, and regrets talking about that and dealing with the trauma associated with that. Obviously that ended differently than, Tarka's situation, but I feel like there's a precedent in Star Trek for that sort of character dive, and that was probably one of the best episodes of Deep Space Nine. So I think that is a good pull for this episode as well. So those are my main points of comparison between this episode and what's come before. But what did you think of this latest episode of Star Trek Discovery? As I said, it was a overall positive one for me, but did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree, disagree? Did I miss anything? I probably missed something. Let me know in the comments down below. Again, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to look for my next movie review, which will be for The Batman, which comes out March 4th, as well as next week for my next review of reaction to the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery. And if you liked this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially a subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for watching. But just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.